Welcome everybody, Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions. We are recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday's education and outreach. Today's educator and guest musician is our friend JJ Patishall, and his topic is navigating the neck with diatonic chord scales. This is JJ's second solo session with us, I believe, and we're going to have him back with us for several others. Participants are muted upon entering the session, and thanks for staying muted for the courtesy of others. If you have questions, you can use the chat feature or the raise your hand feature, and we'll get those questions to JJ. If you are enjoying these sessions or have feedback, want to see us produce a special topic, please email us at info@clearwaterjazz.com. You can see all the upcoming sessions at clearwaterjazz.com/education on our education and outreach page, and the Zoom information to join each session. There's a lot of great educators and musicians working with us on these, and they are all free. So please check out upcoming sessions. JJ is an active participant in our education and outreach. He's a participant in our Young Lions Jazz Master sessions, these virtual sessions, of course, and other programs that we do throughout the year. JJ also delivers guitar lessons as part of our Build the Guitar program in connection with Palm Harbor-based company Best Corporate Events. And that program donates guitars to neighborhood family centers and other facilities in underserved or economically challenged areas of our community, and then we provide lessons in partnership with JJ, trying to get guitars into the hands of students that don't have them and get them playing. JJ grew up with music all around him, and as a result, his sound and knowledge are reflective of a diverse range of influences. Everything from Ray Charles to Trombone Shorty, Billie Holiday to Bob Marley, Lenny Kravitz to Johnny Cash. He is a sought-after guitarist, vocalist, and instructor, grounded in jazz and roots traditions, and has quickly made a name for himself as both a solo artist and a great session player. To learn more about JJ, you can visit www.jjpatishallmusic.com. Clearwater Jazz Holiday thanks our many supporters, including the Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association and the Pinellas Realtor Organization, that are helping to expand the reach of these and other programs that we are doing. JJ, welcome back to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions. The stage is all yours, my friend.
Hey, well, thank you for having me, Steve, and just let me know on your end again if working out the sound levels here. But thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be working with you guys. It's really been an honor and a lot of fun getting to know your whole crew and your team, and even just the partnership between Al Downing and Clearwater has really been great. And Dwayne and I, who I see here in the chat, always have lots of conversations about it. So thank you for this opportunity. And as we get into it now, I did a lesson a couple weeks ago where it was really just getting into the nuts and bolts of jazz guitar. The thing that we'll start with now, the topic for this lesson was navigating the neck with diatonic chord scales. But I think maybe a better way to even frame it as we move forward is just really kind of giving you some tools to work with in kind of learning how to navigate the neck. I know that in these particular sessions we have a lot of mixed skill levels, and so some people have a strong background in playing. Some people are very familiar with jazz. Others, this may be a whole kind of new world for them. And everybody is welcome. So what we want to do is just kind of meet you where you are. That's what I want to do, and just give you the nuts and bolts of at least how to start navigating. When I started playing, even although I'd grown up with a lot of jazz in the household, like most guitar players, I kind of came in through the back door. So I was fortunate to have a great guitar teacher at that time who, although I was listening to a lot of rock, I think he could see in my personality, we started leaning into blues, and from blues, even with contemporary artists at that time, they were contemporary, right? Like from Dave Matthews Band to, Santana was making a resurgence. This was the late 90s, early 2000s. So these players that now, it's funny because although they weren't jazz at that time, I can see kind of the path that was, as my teacher kind of got to know me and the stuff that he started kind of laying on me, it led me to this music. And so even if you're coming from a different background, the cool thing about whether you want to be a serious jazz player or you're just looking for some new ideas, maybe you're an aspiring songwriter. The cool thing about some of these chords that we're going to be exploring is they can really really enhance just any kind of songs that you might be working on. Give you some new harmonic ideas, new rhythmic ideas. So even if you dabble in jazz, there's a lot to be taken from it. So many contemporary players have taken influence from it. So everybody from Stevie Wonder to to Tom Misch, who's a great contemporary guitar player today. So there's really been a lot of crossover between pop and rock and with jazz. So all that to say, so what we're going to do today is a couple weeks ago, I gave everybody some chord forms. We talked about some of the primary sounds that you're going to experience in jazz. But now what we need to do is, that's one thing, but you need to know how to navigate the neck a little bit. So we're going to talk about just the basics of how to kind of find your way around the neck. And the way I'm going to do that is that we're going to use a chord scale. You don't have to have a ton of, again, I know we have mixed levels, so you don't have to have a ton of a theory background for this. So right now, what I tell my students a lot of times is to just kind of take it for what it is at the moment. You don't have to understand every bit, piece of it at the moment. If it doesn't make sense, that's okay. Because if you kind of learn it in a certain way, kind of mechanically, the knowledge, as you get deeper into it, the dots we'll start connecting the dots. So right now it's just based off of let's just get playing. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to work in the key of C, and I'm going to show you how this. Our framework for today is we'll use pieces of the song of like a song like A Train by Duke Ellington, and just in the way that we can we're going to use kind of these chord scales to more or less give us our colors that we need. We're kind of creating a toolbox. And from there, we'll show you, okay, well, when you see a lead sheet in front of you, how to get to those a few different approaches of how to play those chords, how to get them under your belt. So what we'll do is, I'm going to start at the 3rd fret. Now, as we get into it, remember, if you need a refresher, you can go to the Clearwater Jazz YouTube channel, and there are all the lessons that we're doing here. I'll go ahead and there's going to be a recap lesson that will be on the Clearwater Jazz YouTube channel, and you can go and you can kind of refresh. If you don't remember these chord forms that we go over today, just go back to the Clearwater Jazz YouTube channel. Everything is laid out there, and everything you learned today will be on there as well. So what we're going to start with is a major 7 chord. So we talked about major 7s, we talked about minor 7s, and we talked about dominant 7s. So what I'm going to do now is basically off of every note, when we talk about a scale, and in this case, a major scale, whether you're playing blues or jazz or any style, you can build a chord off of every note in that particular scale. So for this, you've probably heard a major scale before. It sounds like this. You can play it all around the neck. We'll revisit that particular scale later on, but what we want to know is that the chords that we're going to work with today are built around that sound. So now I start at the first note in that scale, which is a C. And when you do that, what I like to tell my students is we can just look at the beauty of the guitar is you can look at it in shapes and patterns, right? So it's unique in that way. So what we can do is pick any starting point on the guitar, but let's say here we're going to go to the the 3rd fret on the 5th string. So remember, we count from the bottom up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 5th string. And there's a pattern here. And to play a major scale, it's going to be this. It's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now you may be asking, what are whole steps and half steps? Basically, if you ever played a piano, from one key, basically from a white key to a black key, that's a half step. From a white key to every 2 keys, or from white key to white key, that's more or less a whole step. There are some variations on the piano, but in general, from one key to the next would be a half step. Every 2 keys would be a whole step. So when I do that, I can take that same idea, just as if you were playing it on the piano, I can take that to the neck of the guitar. So on the guitar, 1 fret to the next is a half step. Every 2 frets, 1 is going to be a whole step. So now what that means is, okay, here's how we get, you can play this anywhere on the neck, any string, this pattern, and you're going to get this sound. Whole step, half step. Now we said the next one's a whole step, so I got to go whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. I started at the 3rd fret, so it goes like this. One more time. So from C, this is a D, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now, for now, we're starting on that C, but you can do this anywhere on the neck. So pick a random point here on the 2nd fret, on the 6th string, any string. You can do this any string. It's the same idea. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. All right, I'll do one more. This is on the 4th fret, on the 6th string. Actually, let's jump down to the 5th string. Or actually, the 4th string. It's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now you might be asking, why are you showing this to me? Because now that brings in the next step. Off of each of those notes, you can build a chord. So we go back to the beginning. So let's go back to our C. This is the C. The C is the root. The root is the tone in which that whole, the tone that scale more or less is built around. So in this case, if we're dealing with a C major scale, I go to my first chord off of that first note is a major. So it's going to be a C major 7. I go up the whole step, D minor 7. Up a whole step, E minor 7. Up a half step, it becomes G7. Excuse me, F major 7, sorry, jumping ahead. And then up a whole step, and now we're going to be at G7. Let's stop there for the moment. So one more time. So C major 7 is back at that 3rd fret. Remember, we don't really have time to go and review these chords, but all these chords and these shapes are on the YouTube channel for Clearwater Jazz. Just look up my lesson and everything is explained. So C major 7, the root here is on the 5th string, I'll give you that. Go up to 2 frets to the D minor 7, that's the first whole step. Minor 7. Go up a half step, there's a major 7, F major 7. Up a whole step, that's our G7. We're here, we end on the 10th fret. Now, again, you can apply this anywhere on the neck. So basically the way it goes is, let's start with those first 5 notes. We've got major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7. One more time. Major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7. I can already hear songs in my head by doing this, right? So, and that's basically all I'm doing is just playing on those chords in the scale, right? I'm just going up and down the neck. Now, I can take that same idea, I can apply that anywhere on the neck. So let's say now let's say I start at the first fret, but this time, let's back up. Actually, we'll keep it on the same string. So I'm going to back it up 2 frets down to the first fret. Now we're in the key of B flat. So I play a B flat major 7. The next one would be a C minor 7, right? The next one would be a D minor 7, E flat major 7, that's the half step, up a whole step, we land on the 5, which is the F dominant 7. So that brings us to the next point, right? Let's try one more. Let's put our root on the 6th string. Remember, the roots are either on the 5th string in these shapes or on the 6th string. So let's say I start at, let's start right here in the key of G. Same idea. G major 7. What's the next one? Minor 7. What's the next one? Minor 7. Go up a half step, we're back at the major 7. And I go up a whole step, and we're back at the dominant 7. One more time. So even though I'm shifting between strings and starting points, the pattern stays the same. Major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7. And why I'm showing this, we'll tie it all together in just a moment. So back to the G, we're on the 3rd fret, G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D dominant 7. If you learn these chord scales, the beauty of it is now you have kind of like a toolbox to work with, so that a lot of times in the beginning when you're working through these tunes, let's say somebody gives you a lead sheet, you don't necessarily in the beginning, the beauty of jazz is you improvise not only in your melodies, but even as a rhythm player, when you're playing harmony, the beauty of it is that you can improvise in a certain way even with the voicings and the chord selection that you choose. But in this case, we're not really concerned about that, because if you're new to jazz, sometimes you're just trying to cover the part, especially if you're an aspiring, maybe you're in high school or college and you're just trying to get some of these shapes under your belt. So now what we're doing is we're creating kind of a palette for you to work with. So it's a very just kind of practical approach to this. Now, now you have these chords. So you have, okay, so remember what was the pattern? We'll start one more time. C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G 7. And then if we went up another one, right? So I go up one more fret, it's back to the minor 7. So I go C major 7, we're going to round it out, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G 7, here comes the next whole step, I'm at an A minor 7, so we have one more minor 7. Then we go B minor 7 flat 5 and back to C major 7. One more time. All right, so you start and you end with a major 7. Okay, so now you have kind of these chords. Now, what is the significance of this? So now you've got some sounds to work with. Now, all that does now is it gives you some reference, a framework to work within. So now let's say we take a tune like Take the A Train. When I approach that song, right, the first chord you're going to encounter is a C major 7. So now that you have this, you need to be able to play that chord scale on both strings. We played it here, and I want to be able to do it anywhere on the neck here. So what I want to be able to do now is that, let's say somebody puts a lead sheet in front of me. If I'm playing a tune like A Train, excuse me, first chord is a C major 7. Well, if I know the notes and the chords, right? And again, I tell you how to navigate and how to figure out kind of the layout of the neck in those previous lessons. if I know what my starting point is, right? I know this is a C. Okay, well, I know that this is a C. But I also know that I can play a C major 7 up here at the 8th fret now. And when I play, it depends. There are a couple different approaches, right? Sometimes I choose my chords that I'm going to use based off of if I'm playing with a horn player and it's just a duo, or if I'm playing with a vocalist and I'm accompanying them, then I'm going to get these big fat voicings with all the kind of the low root notes dipping down into the bass, right? If I'm playing with a piano player and there's a bass player in the group, I'm just going to try and shoot for these. We'll talk about this later, but I'm not looking to catch these bigger voicings. I'm looking for just kind of color tones, trying to stay out of the way of another harmonic instrument, right? The piano has 10 fingers versus 6 strings on the guitar, so there's no competition there. So when you're in that scenario with a piano player, a lot of times you're trying to just stay out of their way and add some color to it, or rhythm. But in this particular case, let's just assume that we're accompanying somebody. I know that, okay, I've got a C major 7 here, I've got a C major 7 here. Okay, so now my next idea is, okay, well, the next chord in A train, right, is going to be a D dominant. So if I'm doing that, I know that the next closest chord, I'm thinking economically, as little movement as possible. So now I'm like, okay, well, I know how to play a dominant chord. All right, well, the dominant shape, boom. I can come up here now, I can navigate, okay, well, I know that there's a D right here on the 5th fret. It goes to a D minor 7, and I know that the next chord that comes in that is going to be a G7, or G dominant 7, so the closest one is here. Now, if I wanted to play an upper, kind of a higher voicing, I could jump up here to the 10th fret. But in this particular case, I'm trying to keep things, especially if I'm just getting these voicings under my fingers, I want as little movement as possible. I want to keep everything kind of tight and compact. So, boom, C major 7, D dominant 7, D minor 7, G7, and if I want to, I can do a little walk down. E minor 7 at the 7th fret, 5th fret is a dominant 7, D minor 7, G7. So by learning those diatonic, when I play these chord scales, all I'm trying to do, more or less, is get the shapes under my fingers. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate the neck. It's not so much, once I learn, for instance, if you can do that with multiple chords, or within different keys. Let's say I play in the key of F. The thing to remember, right? The root of these chords always stays the same. So let's say if I play a C major 7, let's go back here to the 3rd fret. Well, I have a couple different options, right? I can play in the key of C, right? This would be a C major 7. But let's say I play in the key of B flat. I'm going to slide back a whole step. Now this is B flat, right? Well, now the C becomes a minor 7, right? So it's B flat major 7, because if we follow that pattern, C minor 7, D minor 7, and so on. And what that is that gives you context. If you can play those chord scales like that, that major chord scale, you play that if you have to, right? You can literally just kind of count your way. If this is all new to you and you're still learning to navigate the neck, well, okay, how do I find my way? I need a C minor 7. Well, you can have, if you have multiple frames of reference, well, I know I went to, okay, if there's the C major 7, I can either, you have to know the shape for the minor 7, but you can also go, okay, well, in the key of B flat, I go up a whole step, oh, there's my minor 7. Same thing here in the key of F. If I were in F, the 2 becomes minor, and so on. So the thing to remember, and this will be up on the YouTube channel, the pattern, right, for these chord scales is major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and then there's also a half diminished chord on the 7, and then you're back to the octave. So this, by playing these chord scales and getting them under your fingers, right? It's an easy way to start learning. You're really just using it as a tool to kind of to navigate the neck. You could just as well take something like take a tune. That's always the best word. A tune gives you a frame of reference to work with. But if somebody lays a tune in front of you and you've never seen any of these chords before, and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I navigate the neck? Well, an easy way to do it is to start by taking those chord shapes that we've learned prior and learn how to now move them within the context of a key, up and down the neck. A lot of time, right, when you learn a song, there's usually a tonal center. There's going to be a key that it's built around. So in the key of, even if there are key changes, there's always going to be that kind of that starting point. So in the key of a song like A Train, it's going to be in the key of C. Yeah. So now once I do that, the beauty of it is you can start, the last kind of component of this for today is to know that, okay, so now I've learned these, I learned all of these chord scales, but what is the practical use of that? Or how do I start to kind of commit this to memory? How do I learn this? So perhaps you've gone to a jam session before, or sometimes you'll hear people talk about 1-4-5 progressions in pop or blues, or maybe you'll hear about 2-5-1s or 1-6-2-5s, and you're, well, what is that? Well, all that really is that if you're looking at it from this standpoint, right? It's literally that every note, every chord in that scale has kind of also like a numerical value. So it's a number based off of its position in that chord. So for instance, the C major 7 will be the first, or it's the 1. The D minor 7 is the 2. The E minor 7 is the 3. You can just count right up. The F major 7 will be the 4. The G7 is the 5. The A minor 7 is the 6. Then I go to the B half diminished, which is the 7, and I'm back to the 1, which is the octave. So again, it's 1 is a major 7, the 2 is a minor 7, 3 is a minor 7, 4 is a major 7, 5 is a dominant 7, 6 is a minor 7, 7 is a half diminished, and then you get back to the root. So 3 things to think about. 1, okay, well, the pattern, the scale pattern, right, for this particular scale is going to be whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. You can do that anywhere. Pick any random note on any string on the guitar, and you can play a major scale just by doing that. Then the next thing is, okay, well, I know that off of that first note, right? Okay, the first note, okay, well, that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're back to the 1 or the octave. And then you know, okay, well, off of each chord, after each, the numerical value of each chord, right, or of each note in that scale, now I can build a chord. Major 7 on the 1, 2 is a minor 7, 3 is a minor 7, 4 is a major 7, 5 is a dominant 7, the 6 is a minor 7, the 7 is a half diminished, and then we get back to the octave, which is also the 1. Now the beauty of this, right, we're just kind of staying on one string, but the cool thing is that once you learn how to play these chords between, on each string, you can play this pattern, right? I don't necessarily have to stay on on one string the whole time. So I can say, let's say I'll go C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, but check this out. Now I'm going to go back down to the 1st fret, catch the 6th string, and I play an F major 7 here, G dominant 7 on the 3rd fret, A minor 7 on the 5th fret, half diminished on the 7th fret, and now back to the 3rd fret. So when I did that one more time, I said major 7, minor 7, minor 7, down to the 1st fret, root on 6, F major 7, G dominant 7, A minor 7, B half diminished, and then I'm going to come back here to the 3rd fret and play my root chord. So the beauty of all this is that once you start to kind of familiarize yourself with the neck, now you're not stuck moving on one string. Once you understand where these chords, as you're saying, say them out loud to yourself. That's what I tell students too. Look at the chord, say it out loud, commit it to memory, and now you know, okay, well, because what you need to be able to do is that if you see a chord symbol in front of you, where it's a major 7 or a minor 7, that now you need to know, okay, well, I know the difference. First of all, you need to know the difference in the sounds, and then you need to know where those sounds are on your guitar and how to find those chords. All right? Always, picking a tune is a great way to do it. In one of the next lessons, we're going to talk about blues. Blues is a great way to just really start finding your way, because structurally it's pretty straightforward, and it's a great way to understand song form. It's a great way to understand like a very straightforward song structure. It's a great way to understand how to move around the neck without too many harmonic choices in a certain way, right? If in the blues, even if it's just a 1-4-5. So the last thing we'll say today is, well, when people talk about the 1-4-5, what does that mean? It's literally the 1, the 4, and the 5. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll go back to the 1 for now. So 1, 4, 5. But in this case, now that I know where my chords are, I can go 1, 4, 5, back to the 4, back to the 1. So as I start to familiarize myself with the neck, now I don't have to jump all over just to get, okay, I have at least 2 options of each sound, right? I know I can play a root, a version of that chord on the 5th string with the root on the 5th string, and I know that I can play a version of that chord with the root on the 6th string. So I can play a C major 7 here, and I can play a C major 7 here. I can play a G dominant 7 here, and I can play a G dominant 7 up at the 10th fret. But doing things like running chord scales and have fun with it. You don't have to necessarily just play it as just scales can seem boring, right? Don't think of it as that. Think of it as now you have all these colors to work with. You're creating a palette. So now, okay, pick 3 chords. Have fun with that. Come up with a basic rhythm, and we'll talk more about that down in the coming weeks. But really having fun, you're going to find that as you start to kind of navigate these up and down the neck, you'll start hearing progressions from songs you've heard before. You'll start hearing songs of your own. And you'll also start giving yourself some options of how to approach tunes when somebody puts a lead sheet in front of you. And I've found this extremely helpful, especially if you're just kind of entering into the world of jazz. And for some of you, if you don't get into, if you decide this is as far as you want to go with jazz, well, hey, now you have a few more harmonic devices that you can work with, and just even if it's one chord, sometimes there's some of the greatest songwriters out there. Sometimes it's just that if you think of Stevie Wonder, or I think of Sting, or Steely Dan, any of those groups, sometimes it's just that one chord that they add in there and it just makes the song. So doing that, for all you songwriters out there too, this is extremely helpful. So if we have any questions, Steve, that's probably a good stopping point for today.
JJ, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Hey, so question for you. For a beginning student, or maybe a student that's been playing a while and has gotten comfortable with the first three frets and is intimidated by bar chords, is there a method, strategy, plan of attack that can make becoming comfortable with bar chords less intimidating? Certainly it requires practice, but do you have any tips to encourage someone, or maybe it's someone that's an older guitar student in the same position?
Yeah, well, it's there are, and I get it. Bar chords are not easy. They're not fun. They hurt. Guitar. The beauty of instruments like the piano. It's kind of like I always say. It's like the piano. It's like you hit that. All you have to do is push down on that key, and you get a sound. With guitar, sometimes you have to work so hard to get the sound out of one string. So what you can do, though, is, and we'll kind of circle back around in some lessons later on, because even a good way to start is like with your open chords. For those of you who have been playing guitar for a while, maybe you haven't spent a lot of time with bar chords, but let's say you've been strumming on a lot of your open chords down in kind of between the first and the third fret. Approaching those chords, let's say there are small things you can do. Getting used to, instead of, let's say, some of you can play like an A chord, right? You might try to cram all three fingers, right? If you've ever played an A, this is an A major, you start that chord here on the fourth string and the second fret, and you try to cram all those three fingers in that same fret. And that's, if you have big fingers, that's not always easy to do. So one way around that, though, is that you can also catch a small chord like that, I can catch it with one finger. So, there's a way, and we can spend some time, maybe over in one of the next lessons, I'll create something dedicated specifically to how to kind of piece bar chords together. But in this particular case, because we jumped ahead a little bit with some of these, but in this case, let's say you have an A. Some people, I've seen people play it like this way, and it's all about the positioning of your finger. It's like you're trying to get that pad of your finger in a certain way to lay on those strings. It's almost like your finger becomes the pad that you see of like on a piano hammer in a way, and it's laying across all three of those. So getting something like that, if you've ever played an F chord, right, that's kind of the first one that a lot of people learn, is either an A or an F. Try to play intervals. So for instance, if I play something like fourths, basically if I, on my guitar, if I create on the top two strings here, I take my first string, my second string, and see if you can get a sound by just playing. See if you can get a sound that's like, press your fingers down, right, across the bottom or the top two strings here, and see if you can. It takes a lot, it's positioning that finger just behind the fret and getting just enough contact with those strings. See if you can get a decent sound, and see if you can move it up the neck. Because the beauty of the guitar, unlike a lot of instruments, right, is that once you learn the pattern or the shape, you can move it literally up and down the neck. And sometimes that is to the guitar player's detriment, right? But that's why so many great guitar players, you'll hear, well, he never learned to read music. Because it's not necessarily, you don't have to read music, you don't have to have a ton of theory knowledge. to play music and to be a great player on the guitar, right? So you can literally learn these shapes in a certain way and move them up and down the neck. You can do it here. So this same idea with that A chord, because basically the last thing I'll say on that, Steve, is that once you do that, bar chords are basically just an extension of that same idea. You're just learning how to move those shapes up and down the neck. You know, see if you can get one. When it comes time, right, the hard part is putting that bar across the entire fret. So try laying a finger. See, can you get contact? You got to get, the whole idea is that you have to have contact with that finger across all strings, right? So almost think of it as like your finger's this kind of vice or this clamp that comes down, and you have to literally pull down into, it's almost in the beginning, a lot of students have to, like, you almost have to pull that guitar, use your fingers to pull the guitar almost towards you. You need that thumb in place, right? That's going to give you extra support there so that it gives you a kind of an anchor. See if you can move up and down the neck. If you can do it with one finger. It's not easy in the beginning for a lot of people, and that's okay, right? Everybody, the thing is to not be discouraged. Everybody's strengths are, when they start, are in different places. You know, some people are pick up the bar chords really easily, but really quick, but they have a hard time with the rhythmic aspect of it. Some people are great with rhythm, but, you know, moving around in the left hand is tricky for them. So there are so many styles and ways of approaching the guitar. So definitely, oops. Can you hear me? There we go. Oop. There we go. Sorry. Anyways, so don't get discouraged. We'll definitely, I'll create a lesson specifically geared towards some bar chords as we move forward too. So if there are any other questions, and if, you know, feel free to send questions my way. I'm happy to help any way I can.
That was great, JJ. Another really awesome session from you. You're going to be back with us on June 17th for a topic we're calling Fundamentals of Improvisation on Guitar. And then you're back again on June 25th for a topic called Jazz and Blues, Different Branches of the Same Tree. So we're going to look forward to having you with us for those, and we'll be talking about others that we can put up as well. For those of you interested in other instruments, there's a lot of wonderful musicians and educators that are participating in these virtual sessions. Clearwaterjazz.com/education. All of the topics are up there, dates, Zoom information to join each session. There's also session recaps that are put up on that page. JJ mentioned earlier that you can go to the YouTube channel, which you can do, but if you go to our education page, we've made it easy for you to navigate, so you can find JJ's sessions and click right on the session recap right next to his session topic, and it will give you a nice little recap of the things that were covered. So JJ, as always, thanks for being with us. We look forward to having you with us in the future.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
All right, stay safe, be well, everybody, and keep playing.
All right, thanks, guys.